is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Welcome into another edition of Mizzou That's Who, your podcast for Missouri Athletics here on KC Sports Network. I'm Tucker Franklin, joined as always by Gabe DeArmond and Maggie Johnson. Listen, if you haven't heard by now, it was a pretty good day in Mizzou land, Mizzou recruiting in Columbia, all across the country. If you're a Mizzou fan, because the Tigers did land that 5-star from Lee Summit North, Kansas City. Shout out Kansas City. Cranking out these top-tier prospects. You got both sides of the state popping out. A lot of really good prospects. Very good to keep those guys home. We had a podcast yesterday. Gabe and I sat down and we talked about what that kind of commitment meant. But Maggie, we didn't get to hear from you. How are you doing?
I am stoked. I actually have my Luther Burns sweatshirt on today. I guess only you guys can see it right now, but if we show any clips, everybody else can see it. So I do have my Luther Burns. I got it. A lot of people on Twitter have kind of been following this story. It took me a very long time to get this sweatshirt. I ordered it on January 3rd of 2022, and I got it about a week and a half ago. So,
post office is delayed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody finally took over 314Ts, took over and held up his end of the deal. He reached out to me. He was like, I'll send you your sweatshirt. I'm super stoked. So, got my sweatshirt. So I was like, I'm going to wear it on the show today. So, got my new sweatshirt, but yeah, I had to wear my 5-star sweatshirt after we got another new 5-star. Excited about it. But yeah, it was a wild day on Twitter. It was a wild day kind of everywhere. The news, it was cool because we got all these crystal balls, Gabe put his in and then they kind of started rolling in and you kind of got that hope. And then it kind of was pulled out a little bit too because, you heard from the OU guys that maybe it wasn't going to happen. And then you kind of heard that after he announced that it may have not even been between Mizzou and OU after all. So that was kind of a wild take. But yeah, very, very cool. You just hope that everything stays how it is with how NIL is. But I'm thinking we're going to see him at Faroe next year.
Would love to see it. Gabe, how are you doing after heading out to Lee Summit North? I was watching your stream for a while for him to commit, and it seemed like there was a lot of people there. Lots of buzz up at Lee Summit North.
There were a lot of people there. I'm curious if my created in 12 seconds live stream has been nominated for any Emmys yet. I haven't gotten notification, but I don't think it's impossible. It was award-winning television without question. It was, I titled it, Here's What You Do When Everything is Effed Up, and you've got to save it at the last second. Yeah. But, it's announcements like that are always interesting because, when I left my house yesterday, I had a pretty good feel, right? I had sent, because I had just told people, look, if you find out that I am wasting my time here, just tell me, and I'll just say, what turned into about a 9-hour day. And it just let me know if I'm wasting my time. And nobody had. I sent a couple messages. I said, all right, I'm leaving. I'm committed. And I got a message. I was about midway. And somebody said, you can be happy you win. So I thought I probably know what's going on. But look, they're 17-year-old kids, man. Who knows, right? Until he actually pulls that hat out and puts it on, I don't think anybody's sure. It was convenient that Missouri had video recording all the coaches just in case, he committed. A very big stroke of luck there that they just happened to be filming the coaches who were obviously caught in this very spontaneous moment. But big day for Missouri, definitely. Top 3 player in the country, according to everybody. And a kid that I know that going into yesterday, I had said, hey, this is step one. This is not over on Monday. And I wrote last night, I said, look, this could come back to burn me, but he really doesn't seem like a kid who's interested in continuing to be recruited. He just didn't. I asked his mom, I legitimately asked his mom after the ceremony, I said, is he excited about this? Because you can't tell. He's just the most low-key. And of course, Oklahoma fans are going to take that. Well, he didn't want to go there. Of course, he's not excited, but I think that's just who he is. He's a super quiet kid who really doesn't have much to say. And I think both his parents I talked to after the ceremony, and they said, we know it was going to be this big a deal. Like his dad said 2 days ago, he came and told me ESPN was coming, and I was like, okay, like I don't think anybody knew quite what a production it was. There was probably 15, 20 media members there yesterday with cameras and all that. So, no, big deal for Missouri. Absolutely. Credit to Missouri social media for using the greatest GIF of all time. And who do you think you are? I am. That's the greatest thing in internet history. I have a group chat that my friends and I just kind of randomly send that back and forth every few weeks.
It's so good. And they also said Mizzou that's who on the tweet that they ended up. So that was very convenient for us.
They, like us, paid Sports Illustrated no royalties for using that.
yes. No, a very big day, obviously. I had a lot of rival fans even message me and be like, hey, you know what? We're not even going to be like, congrats. Like that's huge. And I think it's really interesting too, being from Kansas City, keeping that kid home is big, especially with Lee Summit North, as I mentioned on a previous podcast. They've got some dudes there. Caden Green, another guy last year, I think it was top 5 in the state at least, pretty high in terms of offensive linemen, went to Oklahoma. And so they've had some guys go to Oklahoma. I think they've got other guys on their team right now at Oklahoma, or committed to Oklahoma at Lee Summit North. But so really big for Drinkwitz and company. I think that's a big recruiting step. And Gabe, we kind of touched on this yesterday about Ryan Wingo. There's a lot of buzz now about Ryan Wingo. That seems like everyone's attention is kind of turned to Ryan Wingo in that regard. But he seems like he's pretty steady and steadfast in where he's going to commit, when he's going to commit, I should say, in maybe December. But
maybe,
yeah, he's still got some visits to take. I think I read today. I think he still has a couple visits scheduled.
Things change fast. We'll see what happens. I look, I don't know. I messaged with Ryan's dad this morning actually and said, look, there's some talk. He's going to move this up, and I don't get that indication right now, but I wouldn't rule out that it's happening. But I think, what you mentioned about like other fan bases, I think most other fan bases in this outside of Georgia and Oklahoma were probably rooting for Missouri because this is good for college football, and not because it's Missouri. Because it's not Oklahoma, Georgia, Ohio State, USC, Clemson, the places where these kids always go. And it's kind of restarted the conversation. And Dan Wetzel was the first guy I heard say this, and he has said it for a year and a half now. This has the chance to have, NIL has the chance to send some of these guys to places that they wouldn't otherwise go. There's only so much money in so many spots at every school. So if you can now, if Georgia can pay a kid $10 and Missouri can pay a kid $20, I mean, Missouri can't pay every kid $20.
Right.
These are very made up low numbers.
I think that's actually the exact total.
Yeah, but they can't pay every kid $20, but they can pay some kids $20 that aren't going to get that from some of these other places. And so maybe it does redistribute a little bit of this really high-end talent. And obviously we're a little ways away from finding out if that's actually true.
Well, that's what was kind of silly to me whenever I read things on Twitter and you see the people being like, I don't understand why he would go to Missouri. And you're like, that's exactly the place that you should want him to go. And you see people complaining about it. I'm like, why are you complaining? I see the people from Michigan complaining, and I see the people from I don't know, Texas complaining. I'm like, this is where you should want them to go. Like, you don't want them going to Georgia. You don't want them going to Alabama. Like, if they're not choosing between your school and, Missouri, then cheer for them to go to Missouri.
Also, if you're in the club, you don't really like more people getting in the club, right? Part of being in the club is that you can't get in this club. And so maybe those 12 schools just want everybody to go to those 12 schools, even if it means they're 11th out of the 12. I don't know. But I think overall, like I would love to see some of these kids go to like South Carolina, Ole Miss, places like that don't get these kids.
I think that's
South Carolina has gotten a 5-star.
Well, right.
I think this round, I do think that they have, which is great because I do think South Carolina is on our level of their their facilities, and I think that their NIL is kind of similar to ours. So I do think that this NIL system is working for schools like them, kind of like it is for ours.
Yeah, I think, Gabe, we even talked about this, and this is something I keep coming back to when I think about, the recruitment of Williams Nwaneri and the recruitment of Ryan Wingo, even, of that bill that was passed. And, like, that might be a monumental moment in Missouri sports history for them getting that bill passed where they said, hey, NCAA, you can't mess with us. We have set our own rules with NIL now, and kids who are in this state and they commit to the University of Missouri, loosely maybe even, they can make money now. And that is a huge, I think that is a massive incentive for high school kids who are looking to make NIL life-changing money and having the ability to make it while they're still in high school.
And understand, when we're talking life-changing money, we're talking max 2 or 3 kids a year, right? I mean, they are not, life-changing money is not going to the number 9 prospect in the state of Missouri. I mean, it just isn't. We're talking max 2 to 3 kids a year. I've talked to people that legitimately think Williams Nwaneri is a generational talent. I've had people use that phrase. Now, we'll see if he is, obviously. But so this is not like the norm that's going to happen every year. But it's also really interesting. And I've said a bunch of times, I have many issues with the way NIL has been implemented. I have no issues with NIL as a concept, right? Like, Williams Nwaneri, go get everything you can get, man. By the way, from what I've heard, Missouri wasn't even the biggest offer he had out there. Like, he could have gotten more somewhere else, but he wasn't going that far away from Kansas City. But my point is, get everything you can. You're worth what people say you're worth. And it's just so weird, the double standard we hold athletes to. Professional college, like, oh, well, that guy just, even like when it's pro, Tyreek Hill just wanted to be the highest paid wide receiver. Well, good for him, man. Why shouldn't he be? And so go get this money. I mean, if I was good enough at anything at 17 years old, I'd have probably taken the highest offer. I say all the time, like, people complain about these kids leaving school early for the pros. If Sports Illustrated had offered me a job after my sophomore year at Missouri, I'm taking it 100%. I'm $50,000 to write for Sports Illustrated, I am there. Guess what? I just wasn't good enough at these kids are better at what they do than I am at what I did. So good for them. But I think there's about a 2-year window here where, okay, we got this law in place. Let's go do everything we can because we all understand it's not going to be this way by about 2025.
Do you mean that in terms of it won't be that way, the law will be that way, or other states will have the same law?
There will be some, I think, broader rules, kind of uniform rules of some sort put in place, whether that is like, hey, here's the NIL law for everybody that wants to be part of the NCAA, whether these kids are employees, whether there's a salary, I don't know. But I think it is clear to everybody in the sport what we are doing here is simply not sustainable or intelligent. Like, this is going to end, and it's like, I mean, credit to Missouri. Their job is to win football games. Eli Drinkwitz's job is not to worry about the plan. It's not his money. Hey, do we need to play nice? None of that is his job. So credit to them for figuring out a way to game this system. But I think we can all look at it and say, this is kind of a little bit stupid what's going on.
Yeah, I think so for sure. But we'll be back. We got to take a break. We got to pay the bills. We gotta hear from some of our sponsors. But first, I want to tell you guys about HomeFieldApparel.com. They got a great Mizzou drop that just happened on Saturday. If you haven't seen it already, they got the 1960 something Big 8 champions. I can't remember off the top of my head. 61 maybe. Yeah, 1961 Big 8 champion shirt. It says Mighty Mizzou on it. That's a pretty good one. They got the Fighting Tigers shirt. It's a pretty good design as well. So pretty solid designs out there from HomeFieldApparel.com, and they make vintage back to modern times. They make vintage cool. Vintage is in right now. I don't know if you guys know that. It's hip right now, the vintage stuff, and they make the vintage stuff on just like new shirts. So they take the licensing from these colleges, put their old logos on shirts. People love them. I love them. You love them. Everyone loves vintage logos. The Slippery Rock stuff that they have, I don't know if you've seen their Slippery Rock collection. I know this is a Mizzou podcast. This isn't a Slippery Rock run, but it's very solid. As I mentioned, you can get the Mizzou stuff, but there's also 150 colleges there. They just dropped a UIC Flames shirt that is absolutely insane. I don't even like UIC, and I might go buy it just because the design is so cool. And if you want to get your hands on anything from Mizzou to UIC to Slippery Rock to Colorado School of Mines to Ferris State, you can use the promo code KCSN23 for 15% off of your first purchase at homefieldapparel.com. Go check them out. Good friends of the program, great friends of us all here at KC Sports Network on our college side of our network. They've got us all covered at homefieldapparel.com. So when we get back, we're going to talk about the team that's going to be on the field for this season and kind of how maybe Williams Nwaneri plays into the defense moving forward. So we'll talk to you on the other side of the break.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
We'll go back into Mizzou That's Who here on KCSN. Appreciate you guys listening to the podcast. I want to talk about the team that's going to be on the field this year because I think obviously the defense is going to be what we presume the strong suit of this team. Obviously getting a big bit for Blake Baker and Williams Nwaneri. How much momentum can they carry from I don't know if they really can carry momentum from a recruitment into the season, if that makes sense. But I want to talk about the defense. I feel like we've spent a lot of time talking about the offense because there's a lot more question marks on the offense, right, than the defense. But what if, Gabe, so I know you've been to open practices every now and again. They let you in to see individual drills. But what has your overall arching thoughts been so far on the defense?
I mean, again, we just don't see the defense line up against an offense very much, right? I mean, there's been, Chad Bailey hasn't practiced a lot. Jalen Carlisle and Joseph Charleston have kind of been in and out, so I don't really know who's going to be there necessarily come game week. But I just don't, you spend time watching and talking about the questions you have. And I don't think we have a lot of questions about the Missouri defense. I mean, the only real question is how much is Darius Robinson playing defensive end versus playing traditionally inside, and are the other defensive ends good enough to limit the number of snaps he takes outside? But is it harder to be good when nobody thinks you're going to be good, which nobody thought Missouri's defense would be good last August, or when everybody expects you to be good? You're now expected to carry this team, because that's what happened last year. So we'll see again starting, what's today? August 14th, maybe?
15th.
Yeah. So we are, a month and a day away from the first game that actually counts, that people should really pay attention to.
Yeah. Maggie, any thoughts on what the defense has this year, expectation-wise?
Well, I mean, I have pretty high expectations, I would say. I think that's based on, kind of like Gabe said, they're getting a lot of kind of notoriety from Twitter, accounts. You see, CFF College Football was putting our secondary in the top 10. I think 247 had them right outside, the entire defense right outside of the top 10, right in honorable mention for best defenses. Probably around April. I'm assuming that probably hasn't changed. So yeah, I have kind of high expectations for them. I know we've kind of moved things around. I think they'd moved DJ Wislack, and hopefully I'm saying that correct. Back from linebacker to his natural position. I think at the edge. I think that's right? Or did they move that?
No, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, I can remember if that was opposite or not. So I wasn't sure if you noticed any other differences, changes that maybe we haven't seen, or if that's pretty much standard.
Yeah, no, I don't think, there's not a lot of position switches. I mean, they've got a couple transfers coming in, Trevez Johnson, Sidney Williams in the secondary. I think those guys will be interesting to watch, see what they bring. They brought in a little more talent. It's just, it's weird to me that we are 16 days from the opener, 15 days from the opener, something like that. And nobody's really talking about it yet.
No.
I mean, because of all this stuff with the recruiting and everything over the summer, I mean, look, what did we do the first half of this podcast on?
Right.
It's we'll get there. But it doesn't feel like the season's 2 weeks away.
Do you think the South Dakota game will kind of be a lot of trial and error, and then we'll kind of know a little bit more?
It better be. I mean, I always say games like that, like you can't learn anything good.
Yeah.
You can only learn bad things in that game. I mean, if whoever starts at quarterback, let's say it's Brady Cook, if he goes out and throws for 275 and 3 touchdowns and a half, okay, cool, you should.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I'm going to learn in that game is if he's 7 for 19 with 2 picks. Then I'm a little bit like it was. I mean, the best example of that is the Missouri State game a few years ago, right? Season opener, it's 71-43, and everybody goes, the game was in hand. It's no big deal. No, it's a big freaking deal.
We gave up 43 points.
Played out over and over throughout that year. Like, this was not a fluke what you saw. They can't stop anybody. So you can learn bad things in that first game, but you can't learn much good.
And you talk about from the defensive side of the ball, there's really no position battles that are happening. It seems like it's kind of the defense just seems incredibly cut and dry. Like, this is what you're getting.
It's maybe third linebacker. It's what's the snaps look like between Dalen Cornell and Trevez Johnson, but it's nothing where we're going, I wonder who the guy's going to be here. I mean, maybe defensive end, but I think it's probably some combination of Robinson, Joe Moore, and Johnny Walker at this point.
But then that, you talk about position battles. You look on the offense side of the ball, they're everywhere. One position battle that has seemingly been won that I do want to talk about with you guys is at the center position. Cameron Johnson was brought in from, I believe, Houston to compete with Connor Tollison for that center position. I think they probably wanted to give that center position to Cameron Johnson, but it seems like Connor Tollison has now won that position battle as they've moved Cameron Johnson to right guard now. Gabe, thoughts on that? We were talking before that. I don't know how to feel about it.
Right. There's two ways to look at it, right? And this is the exact same as the quarterback battle now. Did Connor Tollison win this because Connor Tollison is a lot better than last year and he just beat out Cameron Johnson? Or did Connor Tollison win this because they brought in a kid who had always played guard to play center and he wasn't good enough to play center? And we don't know the answer to that. Well, obviously, the coaches are saying Tollison's been so much better, and it's what they're going to say. Again, if Brady Cook is the starting quarterback, is he the starting quarterback because he's gotten a lot better, or is he the starting quarterback because the other two guys aren't good enough to beat him? I don't know. And I'm not picking a side. I'm just saying those are the two ways to look at it. And I think if you're naturally optimistic, you're going to say this is awesome that Connor Tollison has improved and he's the player everybody thought he was coming out of Jackson 3 years ago and all that. And if you are naturally pessimistic, you're going to go, hang on, we hired this dude's offensive line coach and we brought him in to play center and now he ain't even our center. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm skeptical about this because I said before preseason camp, I thought Cameron Johnson was the most important player on this offense. I said, if he comes in and he wins the center position, everything else falls into place. And if he can't, then you're back to kind of piecing things together. But again, maybe Connor Tollison got a lot better. I think it's interesting. Gerard Hamilton for us posted today on our message board, the other transfer offensive lineman, Marcellus Johnson, who has been expected to be the right tackle. He was working a little bit at guard today, and Armand Mimbo is out at right tackle. So, look, you do have to at least acknowledge the possibility they went and got 2 transfer portal offensive linemen, and are these guys SEC starters? I don't know.
I don't love that.
Yeah, that's kind of a scary thought. But also we are, as Mizzou fans, I think we're naturally pessimistic because whenever...
Wait, what? You think?
Because when you say that thing, I mean, every single comment under Cook is the starting quarterback is a negative comment. It just is. So the way that people are going to feel about the Tollison thing is going to be the exact same. I mean, you watch our offensive line issues. There's no way people are going to be like, oh, that's amazing. He definitely got a lot better. I mean, it's just, I was the offensive line's biggest critic last year, so it's hard for me to sit here and say that I'm going to feel that way, So right. I don't know. I feel like I would have more optimism about Cook getting better because I know at least Cook underwent surgery and I know that he was injured. It's hard for me to believe that, iron just sharpens iron that much, so with the center battle. So I don't know.
We've had that conversation about how the offensive line is kind of going to make everybody better. Like, to be fair, the offensive line last year was kind of in shambles in terms of like injuries, and it seems like they had a different player in there every week, shuffling guys in and out. And that can bring disarray to an offense. And I don't think that Eli Drinkwitz is going to put. This is where we get into like position conversations. This happens a lot with the Chiefs, right? Too. I don't think Andy Reid, I don't think Eli Drinkwitz are purposely putting guys out there that aren't the best 5, right? I think he's trying to figure out who his best 5 offensive linemen are, and I think that just kind of goes with moving guys around and seeing what their abilities are, the versatility to be. That's what I'm telling myself, at least, about this situation. I think it's kind of a trial period right now. But you mentioned kind of that in the offensive line helping Brady Cook or helping whoever that quarterback is in terms of protection, run blocking. I think the running back position could be a little bit interesting as well because, the wide receiver position, I think Eli Drinkwitz even said this on 810. I think he got blown out of context a little bit, how Steven St. John asked him about how talented his wide receiver room was, and he said, I'm tired of talking about how talented they are. They need to go out and prove themselves. People were like, oh, well, he's mad about his wide receiver. Like, no, he's tired of talking about potential. He wants to see them actually go out there and do something.
That's where I'm at with this whole team. Yeah, I got nothing left to say about the quarterback, but really, I got nothing left to say about anything until, I know that's great podcast material, right? I got nothing to say, but like, I don't know how many more ways we can break this team down. They're going to go out and we're going to find out, have they taken a step forward from last year? And if so, how big? And there are a lot of things riding on the answer to that question. Tying it back to what we were talking about at the beginning, like this feels like to me to be a year where Eli has to win enough to give you confidence for Luther Burden to be in his 3rd year. And, some of these guys, whether it's Sam Horn, whoever, to be in his 2nd year as a starter, for Dalen Carnell to be a 3rd-year guy, for Nwaneri to show up on campus. Like this doesn't feel to me like a year that you can look at and say they're going to win 10 games. But this feels like this needs to be that step forward year so that you can talk about a program maybe that can win 10 games at some point in the future, right? And if this season is not that step, then you'll be justified wondering if that step is ever possible.
Yeah. Really interesting with football altogether. And we'll get into it more as we get closer to it's already pretty close, but we'll have our season preview episode, obviously, that we'll do prior to the first week of or second. We'll do it sometime. You'll get it whenever you get it of the before the season. But guys, I want to take a break real quick, and then when we get back, there's some basketball news to talk about. Just cleaning up real quick because I feel like basketball has been also having a very good time recruiting, while Missouri football has been having a very good time recruiting. I feel like the football's kind of overshadowed basketball a little bit. We'll touch on basketball coming up right after.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
Welcome back into Mizzou That's Who here on KC Sports Network. Let's shift gears to the hardwood. Couple big 4-star recruits coming into Columbia for Dennis Gates and company. He's got himself a highly graded or ranked class as of now for 2024, with maybe some sights set on a couple other guys. Gabe, kind of give us the lowdown on Marcus Allen and Peyton Marshall.
Yeah, Marcus Allen, 4-star, small forward, generally regarded as one of the best defensive players in the class. Good athlete. Peyton Marshall, somewhere between 6'10", 300, and 7 foot 310. Where he falls in that, he's freaking big. Okay, like. Yeah, I've gotten so many. Was he 6'10" or 7 foot? I don't know. If I stand next to him, I'm going to be looking straight up. That's what I know. He's huge. He is one of the bigger 17-year-old people I've ever seen in my life. I know this much. So, I'm interested to see like how a guy like that fits into what Dennis wants to do. He's regarded as a good passer. A good defensive player. He's not a guy that you would think is going to get up and down the floor and shoot a bunch of threes, which is what Dennis does. But also, I have a feeling Peyton's going to get very familiar with the trainer when he gets to Missouri. and kind of turn that into more of the body and the style of play that they want. But I mean, I don't know, guys, like Dennis didn't even sign one of the top three, didn't even get a commitment from one of the top three players in the country last week. I was like, what do we even talk about?
How rude. No, it's so cool to finally feel like we're going to have a big man on our team. I just feel like we have struggled with height and just like brim protection. And it just, when, obviously I feel like we had been in the talks of getting him and I felt confident that we were going to get him, and just to get that commitment felt really good. So I just feel like that whole staff has done just so good. And we went into all of these commitments feeling pretty confident, and I'm super grateful. Also, shout out CY. It's his birthday today. So.
It is. Friend of the podcast. CY.
A friend of the podcast.
Yeah.
He also said he wants to come on the podcast again this year. So I feel like we'll make room getting closer to the season.
Fine, we'll let him. Could twist my arm. But no, I mean, Mizzou basketball's putting together a heck of a class. 6th in the country right now, according to Rivals, with, Gabe, as you mentioned, in on some more guys, too, that they can grab, and then some bigger recruits as well.
Yeah, I think they'll only take one more, honestly. Yeah. Maybe two. If there's somebody out there that's just, like, too good to turn down, right, you figure it out. But in college basketball right now, like, it's just really tough to have 6 freshmen on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because you can't play them all, and that means 2 of them are probably going to leave. So Honor Boateng is visiting at the end of August. They love him. They'd take it. Ryan Jones Jr. has a visit scheduled. Like, I don't know I can't remember where he's at in our rankings, but I think he's a top 75 player right now, so like, are we really at a place where Missouri's going, top 75, we're good? Yeah, we might be, honestly, because there just aren't that many spots. So if you can get Boateng, this is a guaranteed top 10 class. And that's it's not bad.
Where's Boateng at? Where's he ranked at?
He's 21st. He's the highest ranked 4-star in the country right now. So I think it'll be Missouri, Arkansas. He might take a couple other visits, but I think it's probably a battle between those. And getting an Arkansas kid who has an Arkansas offer to leave Arkansas is very, very difficult. Missouri thinks it has a good shot at doing it. And if they do, I would argue that would be one of the more impressive wins I've seen out of Missouri basketball on the recruiting trail in a long time.
Talking, the 3 recruits they have right now are in the Rivals 150, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
from what I was just looking at, yeah.
Gates has 7. He's gotten commitments from 7 high school guys since he's been at Missouri. They've all been 4-stars, and they've all been in the top 125 in the country. I'll be honest, guys, that is how Missouri should recruit. Yeah. When you're a Power 5 program, that is how you should recruit. It was just that Missouri fans got so used to not recruiting that way for 7 or 8 years that they kind of, like, and I'm not trying to take credit away from Dennis, but there's only 66 high major teams.
Right.
150 kids in the top 150. You should get a couple of them every year. Just by sheer numbers. It was just so weird from 2017 to 22. I don't even know really if Missouri tried to get very many of them.
No, but it is good to see Missouri up at the top of these rankings now when it comes to the recruiting on the basketball side of things and the recruiting on the football side of things. I know that I think Williams Nwaneri shot them up like 20-some spots on the Rivals board.
12 and 61 to 49.
See, Gabe, that is very tough for me because one starts with a 6 and one starts with a 4. So that
feels like 20.
That's 20 right there.
I mean, you could say 20. It'll change probably by tomorrow. It's fine.
But the problem with the ranking system is that everything is based on obviously it has something to do with the quality, but a lot of it has to do with the quantity. So it looks it's a little skewed.
I get it, but quantity does also matter.
It does matter.
Look, you're going to miss on some of these guys, right? Like, they're not all going to hit. So if you've got 20 guys, you've got a better chance of finding 8 that are going to start than if you've got 13 guys. So quantity, I do think, has to figure in some. And again, look, our rankings aren't, no ranking system is perfect. It's all objective or subjective, I should say. But like, I do think the number has to come into play at least a little bit.
Yeah, but we can add like 5 3-stars right now, and that would probably shoot us up a decent amount by sheer by quantity. Just because, I mean, even though they're 3 stars, I mean, and we've been adding a bunch of 4 stars, which, I mean, obviously, I think that we have Drake, what's it, Kirkpatrick?
I almost said Greenlaw, but I realized
he's announced on Friday.
Yeah,
what's that?
Which he's younger than I am. I mean, not him. His dad. His dad's like 2 years younger than me, which is wild to think about.
Yeah, he played at Bama like, I don't know, 6 months ago.
Yeah. I was like, when did he play there? And I looked it up and I was like, holy, like, I'm not even that old.
Do you guys ever think about how Kansas got like the highest rated recruit football wise that they ever had in like the history of the program this summer? And it was a 4-star. I know, Gabe, you probably don't think about this, but and it was a 4-star. I just thought about that randomly. It makes me chuckle sometimes that they got a 4-star. They're like, wow, this is the highest rated recruit we've ever had.
Here's why I don't think about that. Like, I was talking to a couple guys at Lee Summit North yesterday, and we're talking about some recruit. I have no idea who it was, right? They said, what's his name? I go, I don't know. Look, if they're not coming to Missouri, I literally don't pay any attention to them. Like, I went to an AAU tournament one time, and I was like, man, that dude looks pretty good over there. Well, it was Marvin Bagley. He was the number 1 player in the country. Missouri wasn't referendum. I don't care who he is.
That's fair. Well, listen, it's a good time in terms of recruiting in Columbia, Missouri. It's a good time to be a Tiger. Great day, great year, great week to be a Tiger. So very excited for what we got cooking up here in Columbia. We'll be back with, Gabe mentioned, that first game is right around the corner, sneaking up on us. So we'll have a season preview coming up probably next week. The more that I think about it, we'll have a season preview, and then we'll be back with some more great podcasts that you guys love from us here at Mizzou. That's who. We really appreciate you guys listening all the way to the end of the podcast. We'll be back again next week. So until then, we'll talk to you later.